Oh, you're there already. Well, here we are, 3:18. Same time, slightly different weather though. Much nicer today. I've managed to sneak off work for a couple of hours to commit some aviation. So I thought you might like to come and see what we can get up to, do a bit of local flying. We've got about an hour as usual to get back down before it gets too dark. So let's start it up. You know the routine. Master on. Mixture rich. Brakes on. Ignition to both. Actually, I could use this 2D screen to work the electrics. You can probably see better what's going on. I have the taxi nabs on. The reason why, I don't know, I just don't like using it, you know. I think it's let's just call for departure. So we've got Golf Bravo Alpha Foxtrot Mike, 2 on board, request radio check and departure. Okay, so we're cleared to holding point Charlie 28, departure. Let's go. Now as we taxi out, it's not a bad idea to have a little look at the instruments. You see down here on the turn coordinator that the plane is tilting to the left when we turn left, and the ball is skidding over to the right. And conversely, when we straighten up, it straightens up. The ball is literally just a marble in a water-filled tube, so it's like a spirit level in effect. The turn coordinator is worked off a gyroscope, but that's working. And if we turn left, we should see that both the compass and the DI go down. In other words, they've gone from 180 to 160 something. And you can check that if you slow down and turn right, you should see that they both climbing here. So we're looking here and here, and then if we turn left, we see that they're both going down. So they're working okay. These are the sort of things that you can check on the ground. Now I was talking about the 2D panel that you can get to with Shift A, and the reason why I don't like it. Well, I mean, I do like it. In fact, most old flight simmers like me know that there was a time when it was the only panel you had. I'm going to go to, we've been cleared to Charlie, but I'm going to go to Bravo. I'll just request Bravo. But then what the sin that they committed was that when they went to 3D cockpit, like the one you're seeing now, they didn't give you the option of not having the 2D cockpit. So it really just became superfluous and a bit of a nuisance, you know. So it was something that you didn't really want or need. Right, Golf Foxtrot Mike, ready for departure. Let's just do our usual check, make sure nothing's coming. Okay, we're cleared for takeoff at 28. Going to drop 10 degrees of flaps. I'm not going to do the run-ups. We've done those a couple of times, so you should be fairly familiar with those now. And we haven't done any failures. We haven't enabled failures at this point, so I know we're going to have 100% reliability. So, still not very nice today, is it? There's still a strong southwesterly. Let's keep the nose down a bit, still using a bit of left rudder. Get those flaps up. Flaps up is F5. F5 will take up all your flaps, it doesn't matter how many you've got down. In the same way as F8 will drop all of your flaps, it doesn't matter where you are. That's not that clever. I mean, there are very few circumstances. I mean, when you land, you really want to get all your flaps up. You certainly would use F5 then. There are very few circumstances where you want to dump all your flaps, unless you are literally coming in far too fast and high and wanted to really maximise your drag because you had to do an emergency engine off landing or something. But otherwise, F6 raises the flaps one stage at a time, and F7 lowers the flaps one stage at a time. Or you can do it manually with the flap button. But that is a bit tricky, especially on this plane. The throttle works from F1 to F4 again, but you really wouldn't want to use that for the throttle. If you've got a joystick or something with a throttle on it, it's much better. Now I'm going to press B just to set the regional pressure setting, and you can see it's gone up. Our altitude's gone up quite a bit there. And I'll press, when we've straightened down, I'll press DI to. That'd be a nice sunset, isn't it? It looks nice. I'll press D to align the direction indicator to the compass, magnetic compass. Well, we've got a minute, haven't we? So we'll just do a little bit of wouldn't like to call it acrobatics. I don't think this plane is certified for acrobatics, is it? But there's a few things you can do in a plane that, you know, get the old heart pumping, short of a full-blown stall or a spin. Talking of spins, you know, we were talking about the turn coordinator. If I turn the plane, you see how the turn coordinator goes like that? And the ball underneath. Now in a spin, the plane is obviously spinning quite fast, and you'll find the turn coordinator and the ball will help you get out of the spin. In fact, they're the only instrument really you want to look at in a spin. There's no point looking at how high you are, because basically when you hit the ground you're going to know about it anyway. So and the one thing you need to do is to remember to kick the ball back into the centre. So if the ball is over to the right hand side there, you put in right rudder, so you stamp hard with your right foot. At the same time you relieve any pressure on the control yoke, and hopefully the plane will derotate, and then all you have to do is pull out of the resulting dive. Hopefully you've got enough altitude to do that. If the ball's over to the left hand side, then you kick in full left rudder, take all the stress off the control stick if you've been pulling it here, there and everywhere, and the plane again would derotate the other way, and then you just have to pull out of the resulting steep dive that you're in. So that's as far as the ball goes. Most people really not that bothered about the ball to any other extent. Now this plane's not certified for acrobatics, and we certainly wouldn't want to try and fly this upside down. But I'm going to fly a little way away from the airfield. Unfortunately the cloud's not all that high today. If you're going to do anything stupid in a plane, then it's best to do it as high as possible. Here we can fly up to about 5,500 feet without infringing on any airspace of the London airspace. But I don't know whether the clouds are going to let us do that. We might only get up to 4. I'm going to see if we can do a tail slide. I haven't done one of these in this Cessna for a while. Now the idea is, what you do is you put the nose down to gather some speed, and when you're pretty much on going as fast as you think you'd like to be, you pull up until you're vertical. In other words, until the plane is standing on its tail, and then what you do is you just let it stall, because what will happen, obviously it'll slow down, and then eventually, because it's top heavy, the top will exchange places with the bottom, and the whole plane will turn, well, it's going to come down again in some form. Now the best way to do this is in some sort of controlled fashion. What you want to do is you want to go up to the vertical and then slide backwards, believe it or not, fly the plane backwards until such time as it decides to turn round like a dart and head earthwards with the heavy bit first. And at that point you still will be going quite slowly, so you probably won't have any control at all until you pick up some speed, and at that point you then attempt to pull yourself out of the resulting nose down vertical screaming dive that you're in. Now that, believe it or not, is something you can do in a plane. Now, I'm not recommending this in the real world, although I have done it in the real world. So for God's sake, don't do it based on my say-so. But there we are. Now we're at 5,000 feet, and we're okay, aren't we? There's a bit of cloud. I want to try and keep away from that if we can. So so let's have a go, shall we? So now we have to make sure that the plane's clean. So obviously we want the gears fixed gear, so that's fine. But the gear would need to be up, and we're still a little bit too close to cloud here. Mind you, I'm still climbing, so I'll just go down slightly. In fact, we want to go down slightly anyway. So here we go. So let's put the nose down. There's the Port of Dover in front of us again. So nose down, nose down, nose down. Pick up the speed. Still at full throttle. Still at full throttle. And let's pull it back. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. And then look out the side, because that's it. When everything's sideways, you know you're on your tail. So that's on the tail. And it's there we are. And now we're coming down backwards. And gently, let's take the throttle off, and don't do it too fast because we don't want to pull the wings off. And there we are, back down again. We can throttle up. Now where are we? We're about 4,300 feet, so believe it or not, we only lost about 700 feet doing that. 700 feet and about 2 pints of perspiration. There are people on the ground down there looking at us and thinking, what the is he doing? Well, let's have one more go. While we're climbing up, I'll show you another useful key, and that's Shift Z. If I do that, and in fact if I do it twice, you can see I'm getting my frames per second up, and we're getting about 80 frames a second, which for someone like myself that's been flying Flight Simulator ever since it was invented, it's just unthinkable. It's unlimited my frame rate. I've got a GT660 Ti, I think, GTX660 Ti card, which I would recommend. It's a lovely card. And the G is about 0.9, which is all 1, and we've got 44% tanks. And then you keep pressing Shift Z, and it will give you your latitude and longitude, your altitude. And most usefully the wind. You can see here we've got the 319 wind at 36 knots, so that's MSL magnitude 25, 94. Yeah, so I'm heading 252 at 95 knots, and MSL mag 252. Anyway, the wind's 3-1, and we've got a strong northwesterly wind. And then you just press Shift Z, and that goes in. Don't get that mixed up with Z, I think, which is the autopilot command. You can actually, and obviously you don't want to fly with that on all the time anyway, do you? You want to perhaps look at that a couple of times. It's useful for fine tuning. Right, there we are, 5,000 feet again. So I'll keep going until I disappear in the cloud, because I know I'm going to need to descend. Another nice key, if you see something you like the look of, is V. Just press V, and that takes a picture. You'll see some fantastic things from the air in FSX. Northern Lights. Never forget the first time I saw the Northern Lights in FSX. And most amazing. I couldn't believe it. I just like, what the is that? And I thought, no, it can't be. And it was. And they've got the Northern Lights in the air. If you fly in the right sort of weather, and you're far enough north, or I presume south as well. Look at that lovely colour. That's one of the nice things about flying at sunset. Anyway, so we're about 5,500 feet now. So are you ready? Are you strapped in? We're going to do a negative G pushover. This is where all the screwdrivers and all the clipboards come flying out of the floor. And down we go. Now don't go too mad. That's it. When you've got the speed, when you're at the top of the green arc, just keep the power on. Pull up, pull up, pull up. Not too madly, just gently, because you want to coincide the you running out of speed with you going vertical. And there we are. That's the stall warner. And once again we've gone over to the left. So we'll take off the power, because we don't want to power down. And before the speed gets up too high. There's the Port of Dover there. Give people something to watch while they're waiting for their ferries. Well, that was all right. I mean, I personally, I think that's enough adrenaline for one flight, don't you? I would try that. The way to do that properly is to actually do a tail slide. I think what happened was we just went over sideways there, and you need to juggle the rudder as you go up to make sure you're totally vertical when you stop. The one thing you can do that you have to be prepared for is to go over backwards. If you fall over backwards, it doesn't matter. It's a little bit more disorientating, but you'll still end up facing the ground. So all you have to do is just not worry about which way round you are. Just concentrate on not making a large smoking crater above where you did your not really acrobatics. So I'm going to go back now. The other thing, being a sort of an old school flight simmer, you won't see me do much if at all, is fly the plane from outside the plane, and that's a sort of a new thing. I say new, last 10 years or so. I don't know, for some reason youth of today can't steer, can't fly anything, can't drive anything unless they can see it. And if the best way to fly a plane or drive a car was to have a seat outside the car, then cars would have seats outside, wouldn't they? Have seats on the roof. But I don't know. I am much happier in the cockpit, and I think for the sort of flying that I'm doing, which is really sort of just trying to not break the fourth wall. It's just trying to get the realism. Talking of realism, those clouds, look at those clouds. Now, I know people buy clouds for cloud pack, add-on packs and stuff like that, but these are the default FSX clouds. I mean, there's nothing wrong with them. They look like clouds. They look like the sort of clouds I see when I fly around. So, and like when I fly around, if I see a nice fluffy cloud that I can fly through, I do. And there's one there, look at that one. It's just saying, fly through me, fly through me. Now in the UK there's a license, it's called the VFR, Visual Flight Rules. Yes, you have to fly in Visual Flight Rules, and that basically means you're not allowed to fly inside cloud. But let's have a look. Can you see the cloud police? Any cloud police over here? Nope, I can't see them either. So in we go. Now obviously I wouldn't fly into one of those big ones a bit further up, because you'd never know when you're going to come out. But this one I know I am going to come out. It's only a little tiddly thing. And when you're going into cloud, what you need to do is you need to look at the artificial horizon. You see the artificial horizon here. Alright? And just before you go in the cloud, just familiarise yourself with it, because then when you go in the cloud you won't be bothered, because you'll be flying it on the artificial horizon at that point. Don't fly into the cloud and then start to grope around and look for where the artificial horizon is. Get yourself flying the plane on the artificial horizon before you lose your visibility, and then what's the sunset like? No, it is nice, yeah. And then you won't get disorientated. But just for the sake of completeness, if you want to cycle through your views, I'm sure you all know this anyway, but it's S, and use S a lot, and you use A lot, because for every S view there are a few A views. So this is the next S view, which is the spot, which if you've got some sort of button on your joystick, you can usually toggle around, you can usually whiz around with the spot. And the external views, you've got the locked spot, which doesn't seem to be much difference, does it, apart from the fact it slightly drifts around slightly less. And then you've got the flyby, which is nice if you're flying the plane on autopilot, like a big jet or something, and you just want to get an idea of yourself flying by. The moustache is a bit 1970s, isn't it? and then you've got top down. It shows you all the lovely scenery, and you can, by pressing the plus and minus on the keyboard, you can zoom in and out of that. Don't do it for too long, or you'll lose orientation with the plane. And then there's the tower view, and that's the view from the Manston Tower Echo Golf Mike Hotel. And then there's the outside views, and then we should be back in the cockpit. Hopefully not back in the cockpit upside down and screaming into the ground. So for every S view there are some A views. The overhead view is a little bit odd, because you can have it aligned with the direction of the flight of the plane at the lower levels, and then as you zoom out it then becomes aligned with the north at the top. So there's a certain degree of zoom at which that changes over. So we better tell Manston we're coming back in to land. So Manston approach, Golf Bravo Alpha Foxtrot Mike to land. We've been cleared to join downwind. Now because they're using runway 28, downwind is the opposite, so it'll be, we'll have to steer 010, and because the circuit's left hand, it'll be all left turns, which means that effectively the circuit is in its normal place, which is south of the long runway, which you can just see starting to appear there. Now you can, if you want to reposition the plane really quickly, use slew mode. And slew mode is just an artificial way of moving the plane from A to B. So, and you do that with pressing Y. So if I press Y now, you'll see that the plane comes to a complete halt in the air. And it's paused, except it's not paused. It's not paused in time, as you can tell. It's just paused in space. So if I wanted to, for example, speed up my journey, I could push forward on the joystick, and the plane would start to move forward at ridiculous amounts of speed. The speed is actually measured on the airspeed indicator, as you can see. If you want to turn the plane left and right, you can turn the plane left and right by using the rudders. And there's only one other thing you really want to do, and that's go up and down, and that's done using the F1 to F4 keys in slew mode. In normal mode they work the accelerator, but in slew mode they determine the height. And to go down quickly you press F1, and to freeze you press F2. And the remaining two keys, F3 is up slowly, F4 is up quickly, and then F2 to freeze. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, but if you just remember, if you get into a panic, press F2 and you'll stop. And where we want to join the circuit for downwind is just to the far end of the runway, as we will be landing, or the near end of the runway, as far as in other words, we need to join and fly down parallel to the runway. So I'm going to press Y again, and we'll go back to flying. They'll sort of drop us back in. And if you've changed a lot in terms of altitude, then you may need to adjust the mixture and stuff like that. But one advantage of this version of Flight Simulator compared to the previous ones is that when you come out of slew mode, it does actually give you some velocity, because what you used to be able to do is start off on the ground and put yourself up to 5,000 feet, and then when you came out of slew mode you used to effectively be at 5,000 feet with no forward velocity, so you'd immediately stall, and quite frequently you had to start the engine and turn all the electrics on and control the plane and get out of a spin before you could even sort of start flying. But they cottoned on to that, and now let's just go down a bit because we're a bit high for the circuit. See the I mean, this is not a conventional circuit. We're joining downwind. We should be over there somewhere joining downwind, but we're not. So where's the circuit police? No circuit police there? No circuit police there? No. So rule 1 of aviation: if nobody sees you doing it, it didn't happen. Right then, so we're now at circuit height and flying the last part of the downwind leg. So Golf Foxtrot Mike, downwind to land. I'll give you one more little tip, which is an oddity. It's not the sort of thing that's going to come up in a pub quiz, unless you're in a flight sim convention. And that is, in the early days of computers, there was a key combination which literally closed the program, and it was Control-C. Nowadays it's used for copy, but before it was used for copy, before a copy, paste and cut was even invented, it was the command you issued to the terminal to close or stop whatever it was you were doing. Let's put some flaps down. And Flight Simulator has always been a big seller, and people used to play it at work. And this was in the days even before they used to give you like a special key on some programs, so that if the boss came along, you could press a key and some sort of spreadsheet looking program screen would come up, so that the boss would just walk past thinking that you were working on a spreadsheet, whereas in fact you're on playing a game. And Flight Simulator was such an early program, it actually didn't even have that, but the Control-C key did close it, and that's a tribute to the early programming, it's sort of the vintage of the program itself. And you'll find that Control-C still closes Flight Simulator. In fact, we'll do it in a minute perhaps. Let's have another stage of flaps down. Three minutes to sunset. Oh, it's probably a bit earlier actually. No, it's probably sunset now, isn't it? Because that was 15:48 was yesterday's sunset. Now, same again. Coming in nice and high. Now what we could do, and if you want to leave a comment in the next video, we could do all sorts of things. We could go across, we're coming up to Christmas, so we could go across to Calais and buy a bit of duty free, or we could fly across the South End and visit my Uncle George, or we could over a couple of visits. Let's just we've got the fuel pump on. Oh, we've had the fuel pump on all the whole time. Okay, that's fine. Or we could over a couple of trips probably go down to the Isle of Wight. That's nice. Fly around the Needles. 3 maximum security prisons on the Isle of Wight, so it's very difficult to get a look inside one of those unless you happen to own a plane and you can fly over the top. You can flare a small aircraft like this without too much trouble. You wouldn't want to try and do this in a big jet, because it wouldn't flare. Once the jet adopts a certain attitude. There we are. I just landed a bit short there. Let's get those flaps up. That's still blowing about all over the place. See, now I've given myself a long taxi in there, haven't I? Because just tried to show off and just land to near the threshold. As we get a bit more experienced, we'll I should imagine we'll probably relocate ourselves somewhere a little bit more convivial to private flying, because this airport's really a big military airport. You don't really want to be based here, do we? It's expensive as well. It's expensive to land. It's expensive to hire the plane. We'll get ourselves something a bit cheaper and take off on grass. And that's good fun, especially if you've got a big wood at one end of the runway and a big lake at the other end. It tends to focus the mind somewhat. Anyway, I'll taxi this back in and tie it down and complete all the logs, and hopefully I will see you soon.